Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. If we go back to identity for a moment, and that could be Libyan identity or any other identity, I think there are certain elements of identity that are very important to consider. And I think there are good ways of going about identity and bad ways of going about identity. And I will use simple images to try and get to the core of the issues as rapidly as I can. You know, if you want to make a statue, or for example, a statue of a face, there are two ways of doing this. One technique is to take mud, and to special mud, of course, and to shape it into a face. Okay? The other technique is to take a block and to chisel away everything that's around the face. What I want to say is that as your identity comes forth, there is a positive way of doing it, of basically saying who you are positively without destruction. And the other way is to say who you are at the cost of everybody else around you. So I don't think the problem is identity per se, it's how you go about identity. Okay? So that's one idea. A second element or idea is the notion of rootedness. It appears to be the case that most discourses on identity have to do with roots. And especially religious identity, there is always a going back to the roots, you know? Whether it is as scripturas and sola scripturas of the Protestants, or the tradition of the Catholics, or the Sunnah of the Muslims, we're always claiming the roots. But there are two ways of dealing with roots also. You can deal with roots the way you deal with them in a Chinese medicine shop, buying roots in a bag. So you bag them, you preserve them, and then you peddle them around as cure. That's one way of doing roots. The other way of preserving roots is to actually plant them and to let the tree grow. And the amazing thing about trees like this mighty one just behind us is that the branches run away from the roots. Okay? They actually move in the opposite direction of the roots. But their running away from the roots is not a rebellion. It's actually the fulfillment of the roots. And they actually give life to the roots by going away from them. What I'm trying to say is that there are two ways of doing rootedness. Closed rootedness that basically ossifies and sees the tradition as a museum piece, and open rootedness that actually moves forward and opens the horizons to exchange with the rest of humanity and dialogue, as Professor was saying, in an engagement with the universe, so that these roots can actually thrive precisely by not being fixated on. So this is a second point I would like to make. The third point is about identity and loyalty. Loyalty is very important. There was this American philosopher, great guy, who no one reads anymore, it seems, maybe 5 people, Hosea Royce. Okay? I understand in some universities there is a bit of a revival of his thought. I think he's absolutely brilliant. And he has a book on loyalty where he actually contends that it is the essence of religiosity. I believe that that's the case. But the problem with loyalty is it always is intentional, to put it in Husserl's terms. It has an object, okay, that you're loyal to. And in life, you can be loyal to persons, and you can be loyal to things. And I think most destruction happens is when people, in their loyalty to things, destroy persons. I believe, following Kant, that persons are inherently good. And I think that that's very Islamic. I believe that that's not only following Kant, but also following Jesus and Muhammad and Moses, peace be upon them. Okay? I believe that persons should be seen as inherently valuable. And we get confused when we start getting fixated on things. And we do this in two ways. We thingify people, okay? So we reify people, we make them into things, okay? Into objects, sometimes into animals, and sometimes into things less than animals, and they become an object of our wrath. But the other thing that we do, which is very subtle and very dangerous, is that there is a subset of things that seem so inherently beautiful, and these are values and principles, and they are so amazing. We all appeal to values, Islamic values and Christian values and American values, but we have to be careful, because ideas and values and principles, if they are given too much importance to the point where they are used to destroy people, then something is awfully wrong. Meaning that it should never be the case that in an appeal to value, you destroy the ultimate value of the human being. So I think in identifying ourselves, we need to be careful of this confusion. And a final idea that I would like to just mention is this notion of power and will. Okay? The human being in self-assertion of identity often associates that with will. And that is a will to power and almost inevitably pushes people around. But there is another way of doing identity, which is instead of being fixated on will, that we should focus on compassion and love, the rule of charity, as Augustinus would say. And such self-assertion is not destructive. It's actually powerless, meek, respectful of others. I think that sectarianism gets ugly when it becomes a will to power. And that is why I think ISIS and similar phenomena have a lot of similarity to fascism and the appeal to the will to power. We need an appeal to compassion rather than power. And ultimately, and I will finish with this thought, faultness and fallibilism is extremely important. I believe it's so important for democracy. Most of our problems in sectarianism come from the fact that we're too confident, that we're too certain. Certitude is so beautiful, we all appeal to it. But we often confuse our certitude in the truth with our certitude and our understanding of the truth. So we inadvertently worship ourselves and our opinions by being so certain about them. So I think that it's very important to understand that we need a culture of doubt and of feeling faulty that is not apologetic about it, because it does not mean that you're doubting the truth. All it means that you're doubting your faulty self. And with this, I conclude. Thank you very much.